All right, shalom to the Israelite community. All right, Ephraim shall not envy Judah. You know, where did we start fighting each other? Us Israelites, especially under this title, so-called African American, Black, and Negro, we been bloody towards each other. We been bloody and evil towards each other, and it's kind of like a origin, to where we could pinpoint our strife. Almighty, y'all don't want us to be against each other, and how we have to be one unit, one people with one Yah. So where did all this hatred towards each other come from? And I done pinpointed it that, our father Jacob, had Rachel, wives Rachel and Leah. And, my understanding is that Rachel's helpers, Belial, and Leah's helper, Zephyr, their children is kind of like going to be the ones that kind of like started the strife, a little bit. And then it progressed on, into our inheritance that Almighty Yah gave us, to where that we was against each other. And we was against each other all the way to the end. There was times we was united throughout the our history that the Tanakh showed, but we've been in strife with each other as a people for a long time, and it's gonna have to come to an end. It's gonna come to an end when we get in our heritage this time, when Almighty Yah change our captivity, and how it's gonna take us Israelites that worship Yah and love each other to be one. Now the other Israelites, that's not gonna be in heritage, they probably gonna perish. But us that is coming into heritage and striving to love our brothers, men, and our sisters, and that we're gonna have to get an understanding of where our strife come from. And then my understanding is that, our father Joseph, who Manasseh and Ephraim represent his tribe, because they was blessed in with our father Jacob just before he passed. That he made Ephraim and Manasseh Jacob's Joseph representation in the tribe. But before then, it was envy, because our father Joseph was kind of like, in a sense, favored by our father Jacob. Our father Jacob favored Joseph, but because he had him in his old age, and then his mother died while bearing his youngest son, and Joseph was a father's son. And then if you go to Genesis 37, we'll see that it says, and Jacob dwelled in the land wherein his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. And these are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of, Belial, and with the sons of Zebulun. So who are they? The children of Belial gonna be Dan and Naphtali, and the children of Leah by Zilpah is gonna be Gad and Usher. Now we know that they was the sons by the helpers, and that Leah and Rachel were sisters, and that our father originally worked it for them from their father Laban, and that after acquiring them, that he was given, they was given helpers, to help them, and that'll be Belial and Zebulun, and that we know that our mother Rachel couldn't have any children, so her sister Leah, you know, gave birth to Reuben, to Simon, to Levi, to Judah, and to Ashgar, and to Zebulun. And that eventually our mother Rachel would have some children, men upon just before she died, but upon her death, man, she had Joseph and Benjamin, and those constituted the tribes. All right, our father kind of like favored Joseph, and so it was Belial and Zebulun children, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Usher, that was kind of like against Joseph in a sense, because Joseph used to tell them how he was going to rule over them and how he had dreams and so forth, and that in his dreams that he would have some rulership over them. And what they didn't fail to realize is that was Almighty Yah working through Joseph, and that how that Joseph ended up in Egypt, first being thrown in the pit by his brothers, and then eventually end up in Egypt, and then how Joseph did the work of the Creator with saving the tribes of Israel, and saving our people by the things that he did in Egypt, when we sojourned in Egypt. But the strife gonna come, originally from Bala and Zebulun's children, and then you can read this, men in Tanakh history, how they wanted to kill him. You know what I'm saying? They wanted to slay him, but Reuben, who was Leah's child, saved him and stuff, and then let me see, and they said one to another, before this dreamer cometh, come now therefore and let us slay him and cast him into some pit, and we will say some evil beast had devoured him, and we will see what will become of his dreams. And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands, and said, let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, shed no blood, but cast him into the pit that is in the wilderness, and slay, and lay no hands upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands, to deliver him to his father again. And when it come to pass, when Joseph was coming to his brethren, that they stripped him out of his coat of many colors that was on him, and they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty, and there was no water in it. And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels, bearing spices and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah said unto his brother, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hands be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. So they sold Joseph. Man, that's the first act of violence, man, between the tribes of Israel. And then that would morph into Joseph's descendants, Manasseh and Ephraim, but Ephraim mainly, and that how the tribe of Ephraim controlled the northern kingdom. The tribe of Ephraim controlled the northern kingdom, and when our father David passed away and Solomon got on the throne, that Jeroboam was from the tribe of Ephraim, and man, the tribe of Ephraim were on the Egyptian religion, and then that would cause us, man, to be at each other, because the Yah worshippers was mostly from the tribe of Judah, and how that those who didn't follow, Yah worship was mostly, in the northern kingdom, and they followed Jeroboam, and Jeroboam was a descendant of Joseph through his son Ephraim, and that's where the envy gonna come from, right there. How the northern kingdom was mostly ran by the Ephraimites. The Ephraimites, man, kept all kind of trouble going, and they was coming off the land. You can read in the book of Hosea, about Ephraim and the things that he did, that tribe did, man, and they wasn't doing right, and they mostly followed the Egyptian religion, and then that's gonna keep us at each other. We thought that maybe that our enviness and our hatred came towards, that was created in the slavery days, with us on the plantation, and then the slave owners, making us whoop each other, man, and beat each other and stuff. That's where our troubles come from, and man, a lot of Israelites, man, our hatred, man, gonna come from there also, because here's your brother being told by the slave owner, man, to whoop you. Man, that's gonna install hatred. Man, that's gonna install hatred in us, and we've been hating each other ever since. We've been hating each other ever since, and that, man, it's gotta stop. It's gotta stop. But man, if you look in the northern kingdom, when the tribes split, the 10 tribes, start doing their thing and following the Ephraimites through Jeroboam, that, man, it was constant war between Judah and Ephraim, but mostly Ephraim, coming at the Yah worshippers, because they was on Egyptian religion, and they wanted to profit under the Egyptian religion, and that's how you can read Hosea. You can read Hosea, man, and kind of see that, and that Ephraim was always, man, up off the land, and didn't want to do the covenant and so forth. If you go to Genesis 12, look, Ephraim feedeth, that's Hosea 12. Ephraim feedeth on wind and followeth after the east wind. Ephraim feedeth on wind and followed after the east wind. He daily increases lies and desolation, and they do make a covenant with the Assyrians, and all is carried into Egypt. Mean, if you read Hosea, you see how the tribe of Ephraim was, man. They wasn't right, man, and it gives a full description, man, of how wicked the Ephraimite was. Where the Ephraimites, man, gonna be hooked up with the Egyptians, man, and they did trade, but that hatred, go all the way back to when Jeroboam brought that Egyptian religion out of Egypt. He brought that Egyptian religion out of Egypt after King David passed away, and then Jeroboam was into it with Solomon, and then, man, we've been fighting each other for a long time. Like I said, you would think that it started in the slavery days with the slave owners putting us up against each other, but we had problems throughout Tanakh history, man, where we was fighting and killing each other and so forth, and it's gonna come from the false god worship is when it really got bad. It really got bad, when our ancestors started following the Egyptian religion. Now we see that when we was Yah worshippers, men up under our father Jacob, that we didn't want to kill our brother, and we didn't want to shed his blood. But when we started doing the Egyptian religion, man, it was battles and killings and destruction among us ever since. And it's been that way. It's been that way ever since. And we would think that it started in the slavery days on the plantation with the slave owners putting us against each other, but it didn't. Man, it started in the Tanakh, man, when our ancestors mostly start doing the Egyptian religion. And then that's when we really start fighting each other, because you got the northern kingdom against the southern kingdom and against the Yah worshippers. And man, it was more attacks from the northern kingdom on the southern kingdom on Judah than, Judah fighting the northern kingdom. It's that we tried to unite the kingdoms, and it was kind of like united under King Jehoshaphat in a sense, and that his children kind of married over, meaning to the northern kingdom. I think Ahab's descendants, but man, after that, man, we mostly been fighting each other ever since. And then we can see in the Tanakh history, man, where the Creator told us to to love each other and not to do each other bad, and hate each other like we did. If you go to I believe that's Exodus 22. Let's see what Exodus 22. But man, I'm gonna know most definitely Deuteronomy 22 and Exodus 22. Let's see what it say, how we should treat each other. Thou shalt not see thy brother's ox or his sheep go astray, and hide thyself from them. Thou shalt in any case bring them again unto thy brother, and if thy brother be not nigh unto thee. But then it go on to show how we will respect each other, and then how we should be for each other, and how we shouldn't dog each other out, man. The Tanakh, man, is full of laws, man, and how we should be straight with each other, man. And we ain't been straight with each other since our father Jacob was around, and how we mostly been fighting each other and clowning with each other after our father Jacob passed away, and that how, man, we ain't been right, and then how that we gonna have to start being right with each other if we want to survive as a people. If we want to survive as a people, man, we got to be right with each other. And that's the only way we gonna make it, man, is if we love each other, man, and care for each other and support each other. But if we don't support each other, then our enemies, man, gonna constantly take advantage of us, because we're not gonna have no unity. Our unity is gonna be with us being for each other and backing each other, and especially when you're a Yah worshiper, man, you got to go all out, man, to help your brother and your sister. And we got to have some unity just based upon Yah love, on Almighty Yah love, and that we can do it because it was in us from the beginning, man, that we mostly ride with each other when we see the enemies dogging us out, and just constantly beating us down, and then we'll try to come to each other's aid. But man, we got to stand up, man, before them. Man, it's like our communities now is devastated by the Israelite on Israelite violence. Man, we mostly prey on each other, and our enemies just kick back, man, and watch it and encourage it and so forth. And that how we're gonna have to change our ways. We're gonna have to change our ways, man. There's so many scriptures, man, there's so much history, man, about us being at each other and war with each other. Man, all the first kings 14, 15, it is full of it. It is full of us fighting each other and doing each other real bad, and that how we Israelites, man, gonna have to start being for each other. I know it's hard to unite with the Negro, the Black, and the African American, the Israelites that sleep, that's under those titles, but us that's woke, we're gonna have to start being for each other. God, that's the only way we gonna make it. And then when we come into heritage, man, it ain't gonna be no Ephraim shall not envy Judah, and that we're gonna be right with each other. That it's gonna be automatically understood that we have to be for each other. That's like, look at our enemies. Man, they put their strife out of sight, and you can't see them hardly fighting against each other. But us, man, you see us fighting and clowning with each other, and we don't have no respect for each other. And that's our destruction right there. You know, we could change it because we believe in Yah, and we have something to unite ourselves with, our, our Creator, and how He set forth, brotherly love, among us. And our history in the Tanakh is full of it. This is a message from the Israelite Brotherhood.